They're guys. They do magic. They are the Magic Guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to announce the first episode of the year. Welcome to episode 201 of the Magic Guys. To my left, coming in at, what would it be under? 180 pounds of muscle, 6'5", and the hands that amaze and delight. It is Nick K.
Come out flexing, and in the red corner, standing at an amazing 9'9",
Laying down.
laying down the beatboxer beatdown.
Woo!
Josh Nobito.
Thank you.
It'd
It's
be
great to
funny
be here.
If you got in a fight and you actually did sound effects while you were fighting, like you'd be like, "How dare you?" I'm like, "Did you just beatbox and slap me at the same time?"
Yo, I'm not against it. It's a nice idea. And I'll work on it. And you know I'm going to film it if I was to do that. So stay tuned. But look, here we are, episode 201. Some people who listen to episode 200 might be saying, what the hell, guys? You said you're going to take 2 weeks off. Well, magic is about surprise. And, well, we missed you guys, so we thought, let's just start a week early. Who needs 2 weeks off? Anyway.
Yeah, we actually missed each other more than anything. And Doug didn't miss us as much, which is why he's not here today. He has a life. He is enjoying his holiday time with his family, but he will be back, fear not. And he does send his love and wish all of our listeners a very happy new year with lots of magic, love, and prosperity, which is basically what we're talking about today. With all New Year's that come, there's always that annoying notion of the New Year's resolution. Some folks go, I'm never gonna this again. I'm never gonna that again. I'm gonna lose weight. I know what mine are. I break them every year. Although this year I'm gonna be disciplined.
What's the saying? Like, quitting smoking's easy. I do it every year or something like that.
Yeah, exactly right. So we put the call out to you guys and we kind of said, hey, planet, what are your new Let's say that again. What are your New Year's resolutions? I wrote down 10 of them in total, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. So thank you for sending through your speak pipes. Josh, do we have a speak pipe loaded up?
We have one that came through before we put out this call, and this was a really nice thing to hear. It comes from a gentleman in the US named, well, in brackets, he says Mr. James. I think that might be his performing name. But his name is LaShawn James. Very suave, very suave is the best word I got right now in the morning. He sent through a speak pipe. We're going to play it for you now. Here we go.
I've been telling myself I was going to leave a speak pipe for a really long time, and tonight was one of the nights where I had to leave one because I need you all to know how much of an impact you're having on magicians, especially ones that are hobbyists looking to become more like semi-professionals or professionals. You all are amazing inspiration, and you've just created avenues for people to learn and grow and even to work. And so I am a San Antonio magician. I'm working at a residency at Holy Moly where I'm able to do magic, and it's just been an amazing experience. And so I wanted to reach out to you all and say thank you for your support as far as just the podcast. And I really, really hope you know deep down inside that your podcast are not only reaching people, but really affecting them in a positive way. And so let me speak on behalf of everyone who hasn't yet left a speak pipe to say thank you, and say thank you to all of you for what you're doing for the magic community. It really is just a healthy podcast and a healthy place to listen and to grow. Thank you, guys.
Wow, dude.
That was nice.
We're really making a difference, aren't we, pal?
One magic wand at a time.
That's really cool. Jane, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for being part of Omegan. Really happy to have you aboard. It's really nice. When you're, when magic is a gift, and being in the true nature of giving, you give without the expectation of receiving if you're truly in the spirit of giving, much like we would in Christmas time. And to hear that back is beautiful and unexpected, but deeply appreciated. Thank you. Thank you so much for those beautiful words.
Amazing. I've not had the pleasure of speaking with Mr. James before, but I hope we get to hear more from it. Yeah, super cool. And also, we enjoy doing this, but there is something about I forget there's like 4 tiers of what you do in a profession, and it's like you like learn from someone, you work really hard, you like make a career, and then you like send the elevator back down and you like help the next cycle of people do it. And we're in no way big famous magicians, but we just already enjoy. Well, Nick is famous, but we just like to
infamous.
Infamous, yeah. Nice. We love it, is what I'm saying. And this is a great outlet, and we're just so thankful that you guys enjoy it too. All right. Enough of that before we make Nick start crying. The next speak pipe that came in, starting with the New Year's goals, is from Kyle W. Magic. Is he in the chat today? Kyle, are you there? This is your speak pipe. Let's see. I have not vetted this in advance, so let's see what Kyle has for us.
Is it rolling?
Oh, sorry, you can't hear that.
The important thing about magic is to share, people, and sometimes sharing also comes in like being able to hear things. And Josh,
that is hilarious. You see me putting my fist up, like because I'm listening to it.
You're just for the listeners. I heard silence, but then I see Josh's sort of fist pumping, like, yeah, man, there's some words coming out of this guy.
Luckily, the AI editor in the audio that cuts out the silence spots, you probably won't notice that awkward silence if you're listening to this on Spotify.
Also, we do this live. This is unedited. We're just straight raw dogging into the microphone. So let's give it a take 2 on Speak Pipe 2. Here we go.
Hey guys, Kyle W. Magic here from the UK.
Are you hearing this now?
First of all, Happy New Year to you all. And my 2025 goals are to complete the free ball Cascade Juggle. If you've got any tips, send them my way, please, because I've been struggling for about 2-3 months now in the rhythm and stuff. But I'd like to hear what your views are and your goals are for 2025. And do we get Jason back this year?
Dun, dun, dun. So I think I heard him say he's trying to do the 3-ball Cascade Juggle is what he said one of his goals are.
Oh, is that what he said?
I'm pretty sure, because he has a great, sexy UK accent, which girls love. But for us, we're trying to decipher. We're trying to translate from British to standard, whatever
Drunk
English is, to Aussie accent. I think that's what he said. The 3-ball Cascade Juggle, which I'm guessing is your classic 1/1. I think the tips for that is you just have to do it. I remember really enjoying juggling when I was a teenager, and you just have to make a routine where every morning you make yourself do like 20 cycles of it without dropping, or you do it again. Once you nail it, then great, you go about the rest of your day. Then tomorrow, you just make sure you start your day with it. Have your juggling balls right next to your bed or on your desk, and you just do it. Much like in Magic, where it's like, all right, I really want to nail the anaconda. So how do you do that? Well, you got to freaking do it a lot over your bed and drop them. So repetition, I think, if I had to.
Yeah. I would say your anaconda don't want none unless you got buns, hun.
Well, that's actually leads me to my goal for 2025 is to get some buns.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know enough about juggling to give you any expert advice, but the way that I try to break down almost anything that I need to achieve in my life is little victories. I focus on very little victories, and it might be something to the extent of, if I want to run 5 kilometers without dying, I will start with 500 meters. And if I do that and I win, then that's just a small win. And then focus on going 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, 3 kilometer, or a mile. It doesn't particularly matter. But the point is that little victories lead to big wins. And nice. I think that if you break it down in small pieces, whether it be like a single move or, I don't know, just or phases. If it's certain phases of a routine or certain phases of a book or even like a script, you know what I mean? Like you just take a one bite at a time and see how you go. And I'm hoping that applies to juggling, but that's sort of the best advice I can give. I like for someone who doesn't know how to juggle, I would sort of go, okay, let's just toss one ball from one hand to the other and then try get a second one involved and then a third one and then break down what the phases look like when you sort of goes from this hand to this hand, then up and over. Like I would just do those one at a time, like for as long as it takes, and then go, okay, I'm ready to go to like the fifth phase of this 3-ball juggle type thing. That's what I mean. I hope that's of something of help.
Yeah, I hope we actually heard that correctly, and you're not actually saying you want to learn like the Cascade Shuffle or something.
People could just be listening back to this, being like, "Oh, look at these stupid boys that don't even listen to their people." And we apologize if that's the case, but either way, I think that the practice method still stands. Little victories, lots of little bite to eat the elephant.
100%. All right, next Speak Pipe 2025 New Year goals is from a friend of ours from the podcast and fellow Melbourneite, LJ. Liam Jumpets, he sent in a speak pipe. Thank you for sending that in, Liam. We're going to play yours now, and I'm hoping you hear it straight first go.
Hey everyone, it's LJ here from Melbourne. Lots of love to you all and a very happy new year. I have some very ambitious goals for 2025. I'm going to be producing a brand new show this year and also continuing to develop the show that I won an award for last year in 2024. And I'll be putting it on in front of the biggest crowd that I've done the show for yet. And my goal is to build as good of a team as possible to help produce that show, because I can tell you right now, it's definitely not going to be an easy slog by myself. But I know that I can absolutely count on the people close to me and work on that with them. But I'll be producing a show in the Adelaide Fringe Festival. I'll be producing a show in the Melbourne Comedy Festival, then the Magic Festival, and then the Fringe Festival in Melbourne later on in the year as well. So big year, and as well as all of that, I'll have all my regular stuff going on as well. So fingers crossed that'll be fantastic. And if you guys have got any tips or tricks for managing workload whilst also keeping up all of the other hobbies in my life, then please feel free to share. Lots of love. Cheers.
That's awesome, LJ. Thanks for sending that through. Just a quick plug for his show. It's called Magic Safe, which is based off a work safe connotation we have here in town. We spoke about it on LJ's episode a few episodes back. By all means, look it up. Totally worth a listen. LJ is an amazing performer / amateur pro wrestler, and he puts those sort of two entities together and produces this really brilliant show that's super duper funny. I've seen it, and it's great, and it's got so much potential to basically to be worthy of awards at like Melbourne's Comedy Festival. It really does. But producing shows of this nature, as you sort of mentioned, like what are there to think about? What is there to work on? I think having a great show, step one, is probably one of the most important things. And you do have an infrastructure and community that are going to help you do that. You got people you can lean on like me and everyone else in the Magic community, people within our Discord. Like we're all here for each other and we all want to see each other succeed. That's the easy part. But I think the other part that I think Josh would be better equipped to answer would be things like the marketing entities and the promo and things where, how do we sell bums on seats? And for example, because you could produce the most amazing show, but if no one knows about it, what happens then?
Yeah. I mean, look, the very easy answer is you need to get like a publicity agent. If you're like, that's if you are doing a big tour or something, or like a week long run where if you need to sell like a ton of tickets, then because you do have to pay for a PR agency, but they are the ones that will get you on TV and stuff. That's like the simple answer. But what I caught LJ asking really was how to manage the workload of doing that and keeping up with work and hobbies and stuff. So I think his question was, because he understands that doing these shows are going to require a lot of his time. What's a tip to manage that workload?
Sacrifice. Sacrifice. I know that you like if you're someone who like okay, like I don't play video games. I don't spend a lot of time tinkering with just watching TV shows. Like I don't sit in front of Netflix and just like kill 3 or 4 hours. I would rather do that in front of a book. So that's the sort of suggestion I have for things like that, that there's going to be certain things you're going to need to sacrifice. And sometimes those sacrifices will look like you have to get up earlier in the morning to get what you got to get done to make time for things. That's that old saying. It's like, if they want to be here, they'll be here. Like it's, you can make excuses. Yes. But I think ultimately, bro, like you just got to change down priorities and hope that people can support and understand you.
I second what Nick said. And I also, a thing that has helped me manage my time is, funnily enough, planning it out. So I have discovered the most genius way of making sure that I make content every day. And it's by fucking writing it down. So I've got myself a whiteboard and I plan out, this is from last week, but I plan out like Monday to Sunday, what piece of content I'm going to make. And therefore it's so easy to walk in the next day into this room and go, oh yeah, today I'm cutting this thing, like a snippet from my show. Or today I'm going to find a trend on Instagram and I'm going to make my version of it. And that way I'm already thinking about the videos I'm going to make through the week, and it gives me more time for my brain to come up with the best like idea of it. Whereas I used to come in here and completely from scratch every day go, oh, what am I going to do today? And I'll spend like freaking 20 minutes just wasting time trying to think of something. So anyway, it's like such a small thing that, I don't know why I wasn't doing this before, but planning out your week. That way you'll know if you actually have time to fit everything in and what not to fit in, like Nick was saying. Yeah. But keep us updated. Keep us updated.
Like having the discipline to follow through. Having a plan is one thing, but plans without action are just dreams. Isn't that the saying?
That is that is the saying.
Yeah. So 100%. If you like, you get to this point where you say like, I wanna this, I wanna that, but then you got to turn those wannas into gonnas and actually do what you're gonna. So
I like it.
Yeah. Good luck with that, LJ. I think you're going to be just fine. You got a great show. We've spoke about stuff, and I threw out a suggestion, and he was like, I can't do that. And I go, you can. You just got to make it happen. Because that's that's really challenging. It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But he's got everything he needs to make that happen. And he and I will talk about that over some lovely Korean fried chicken very, very soon.
Yeah, hell yeah. All right, last speak pipe. Scotty P. Scott Painter, the mid-strength magician, has sent in his speak pipe just this morning, I believe. Thank you for sending that in. Let's see what Scotty has in store for us.
What's going on, Magic guys and viewers? It's Scotty P here. I have a rather aspirational goal for 2025, which is to replace my full-time job with being a corporate magician. I do have a strategic plan in place to get there, but it is aspirational, as I mentioned. I have a much more simple goal for 2025, which is just a gig. I just want to get out there. I want to perform. I like doing the charity events, the gala dinners and charity balls. However, I'll just take what I can get, whether they're private parties or whatever. That's it. I want to get out there. I want to perform, and I want to get more gigs under my belt. Wishing everyone the best for 2025, and hopefully I'll be able to tune in to the next episode. See ya.
Good goals.
Yeah, nice. Essentially, get out there and perform is what I'm hearing from Scotty, and that's the right attitude to approach it with.
I think it's also good to know what you want. If you don't know what you want, you don't really know where to go. Like if you need direction in your life, so I guess let me take a step back from that. It's like if Scotty's in a position, thankfully, where he's like, I know what I want, and I'm going to start taking small steps to get that. That is step one. That's great. Sometimes you're sitting there going, okay, what are your steps this year? You go, well, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I need to, whatever else. And that's okay. We've all been there. I feel like that at least twice a year. But I think that what happens then, if I can give you any direction, is take a second and focus on what you don't want to do. And by eliminating what you don't want to do, it'll give you perspective to find out what you do want to do. So let's say, for example, you say, I want to do gigs. And you go, great. Do you want to do kids' parties? And you go, no. Do you want to do your own shows? No, not really. Like, I won't be able to sell tickets. Like, what do you want? Like, I just want to get asked to do a couple of birthday parties or maybe get a residency, and go, okay, great. Now you got some focus. Let's write down 3 sort of gigs that you would like to be performing. Okay, cool. And then figure out how to get there. So that's kind of what I like to do. If it's like, if you don't know what you do want to do, focus on what you don't want to do. And just through process of elimination, it'll help you figure out at least a direction that you can start going into. And you can always pivot that. I mean, you can always go back and pivot, but just move forward. Don't confuse movement with progress. You know, just because you're thinking about something, you think that you're like, your brain's moving and you're getting progress done. You're not. It's not until you start putting distance that you start making progress.
It's not until you start losing your hair that you're working so hard that you're making progress.
Oh, you can see how far I've come.
Yeah. Yeah, mate. I had a ponytail on episode 10.
I had an afro.
An afro. Man, that's so weird to think. I had hair at the beginning of this podcast, like episode 1 to episode, I don't know, 50, or I forget.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah,
that's required.
I just renewed my international license because I'll be heading overseas shortly, and I have a photo from, I think it was like 2007 versus now, and it's like, Jesus Christ, I look tired.
Damn. What, now or back then?
Now I look tired. I'm like, oh my God, you look tired, old man. Yeah, pre-beard, pre-all that. Bald, but pre-beard. So like it was, it's a fun time. But is that the last of our speak pipes?
That is the last of our speak pipes. And we want to head into our own goals or advice or thoughts that we've had over Christmas.
Before we do that, you and I were having a really cool conversation about a really awesome visitor that came past the Theater of Magic. Should we touch about that real quick before we press into the cheeky list of mine? Because I think that's a very cool story.
Absolutely. Pretty surreal. So there is its own story as to how this came to be, but that can be for another time. Essentially, Adam Cheyer, I found out is how you pronounce his name. He, at first, I knew he was like a hobbyist magician, right? But then I found out, no, he's actually the creator of Siri that we all use in our iPhones. His company created Siri and sold it. Originally, it was an app available on the iOS App Store. And then he sold it to Apple. And I'm just reading what Google says. Apple bought it for $200 million.
Was that all?
Since then, Adam also, he has 5 companies. He has a company called Viv Labs. He also created change.org, the website.
Oh, Jesus.
There's like 3 other things. Anyway, great guy, like just really fascinating mind. And he and his family came to Brisbane specifically to see our Theater of Magic show. Like, I'm talking, he landed and 2 hours later he was at our theater having dinner beforehand. Saw our show. He had lunch with us the next day, and then early in the morning following that, they left and kept going on their holiday. Like they went to Melbourne and stuff. It was crazy. And that was because another magician had mentioned me that he knows in the US. And so it all kind of like worked out really well. Anyway, so, you know, he's coming. So you're like, holy crap, like, what do we do? We're like, let's just do our normal thing. He came and saw the show, and he even said, like, any advice I give you, just know this might not be actual advice for a normal audience seeing a show, because he might have seen the most magic on earth than any one person like has consumed. Like, he makes it a point to seek out every magician he can, every show he can, Like they'll travel, as he did for us, to see a show if he hears about it and there's a different angle on it. Like he wants to go and see it and stuff. And something else you should know is he has an annual party where he hires the best magicians from around the world to perform at for his guests. Now, when I say that, he showed me photos on his phone, and he has a video on YouTube of like the recap of this event. So I'm not saying anything that isn't already public, but he's flipping through his phone and I'm seeing at his party, his like event, he's got Eric Chen doing his event. Roving, he has Danny Diotis doing the roving. So Danny Diotis is there roving. Eric Chen is doing a stage performance. Charlie Fry is doing a performance.
What?
The year before that, he had Shin Lim, or 2 years before that, he had Shin Lim. And there was like 3 other crazy people that I saw on that, like they're all headliners that would be one person at an event, but he's brought them all to one place. What I'm saying is, like, it's insane to see that. And so what it tells me is, okay, he has access to like all the top magicians in the world. And he's telling me stories about him and Copperfield because they're friends, because they're on the same kind of wavelength, you know, business wise and stuff. And, you know, just insane. Then we ask him about our show, right? So he's seen the show. We ask him the next day, like, do you have advice and stuff? And then something he specifically said to me was, all the top magicians that I love personally, that I fly out to perform at my event, are there because they're like they have a specific character or a specific niche in which they excel at. Like they're a magician who can do this, or like they're a magician, but they also do this art form on top of it. They're not just a magician doing just a blasé of great tricks. They're like, he's the best in the world at that thing. And when he said he watched my show, the character he gets the vibe of is the master sleight of hand angle. Like, because I'm doing very intricate, difficult, close-up sleight of hand stuff. And that's what he enjoyed watching. But then he said, but then you do a trick that has nothing to do with that. And I'm thinking, why is that trick in the show that has nothing to do with this character I've seen you doing the rest of the show? And what he's talking about is a drink prediction where the drink changes in the can and you pour it out. He's like, how come you did all this intense sleight of hand and great stuff, but then you end with something that has nothing to do with the rest of your show? And the only answer I could give him was, I know it gets a good reaction. Like, I know I built the routine to have good beats and laughter and stuff, but you're right. Really, if I ask why I'm doing it, it's only because of like, I know it will get a good reaction. So what he posed to me is, once you know what your character is, you should always be able to answer the question of, why is my character doing this routine in this show? And the patter or your scripting should explain to the audience why you're doing it. Like each routine should like reveal something about yourself, like yourself being your character, so that they come away after the show feeling like they've really learned a lot more about who that performer is. And so I had no intention of that being a goal for 2025, but now it really is, to build the show, making sure that every piece that I'm doing like is something my character would do, and sprinkle some form of truth within it to tie it together and like leave them knowing more about like the identity of me, so I don't get lost in the sea of, you know, oh, are you the same guy that did our event like 3 years ago? They did something with the cube as well. Like, I want, you know, that's how you help make sure that they know, like Nick K specifically, not, you know, this great magician at some point we saw. What was his name? I don't know. Really, like, I could go so deep on this, it just kind of blew my mind. But that, and he gave me examples of like the David Blaine's and even the Chris Angels and the Copperfield, and he like could really isolate each one and tell me about them and why their shows are the way they are and why they end the way they end, and really cool stuff. Like, my head almost exploded. And yeah, really grateful to have spent time with him. And that was Adam Cheyer.
That's really cool. And that's really high praise as well. Like to receive someone, you know, that what spins me out the most is his understanding of magic is phenomenal. Like it really is. But I mean, what do you expect? The man's a genius and he's achieved so many brilliant things in his career. You know what I mean? Being able to sell Sirion and so forth. Like power to him. Like what an absolute privilege and honor to meet someone like that and spend time with him. That's fantastic, dude.
Yeah. Also, he talked he talked really highly of a magician named Joe Barry. Have you heard of this gentleman before?
I lectured with Joe Barry some years ago. Yes.
From the UK, right? I think from the UK.
Yes. Joe Barry is one of the best kept secrets in magic. Imagine Danny D. Ortiz, but really English and really handsome. Like that's
so,
and the stuff he does, it's when I say like we're not talking like, hey, oh, we're talking like proper English, gentlemanly, blah, blah, blah. But his card work and the stuff he does, like to give an example, we'll be sitting at a table and we'll just be jamming, and then he'll do something where like the card where someone will think of a card, and then you snap your fingers, and then you take your cards out of your box, and that card's been inverted. But not only your card, the guy in front of you, the guy next to you, the guy next to you, the guy next to you, everyone take your cards out and spread. And somehow, in amongst all the interactions, he's taken everyone's deck and just inverted them and given them back to you and stuff. And like there is a level of Jedi that guy does. And I've watched his works. I've seen his DVDs. It's not even a tenth of what I've seen him do in person. My most favorite thing I ever saw him do, and it wasn't even a force, was he grabbed a deck, right? And he lifted the back left corner with his thumb, and he showed me the pip, in this instance, the 3 of diamonds, right? He then clipped it between his thumb and first finger, no break, no out jog, nothing. He asked the spectator to say stop, and then gave him the deck to shuffle. And I looked at him and I went, Joe. And he looked at me as if just with a very kind of nonchalant, like, yeah, I'm that guy. And I was like, Joe. And he was like, shh, I got this. And I'm like, nah. And then I said, you know, and I explained, oh, it's just timing. It's just timing. Like, I'm really good at estimation. And I was like, okay, can we explore that together? He said, yeah. And so we're doing stuff. And he was like, boom, throw it anywhere in the deck. And he just by estimation was just cutting to it like every time, or off by one time. Like it was amazing to see that level of it. And how we got there is an amazing story. And I don't know if I'm privileged or if I should be saying it or not, but I might save that for a different story. I might bring him on board and he might share the story himself, but he's extremely difficult to get a hold of.
We have to get, yeah, I will. I know a guy that books him every year, so maybe he can get us in touch, because Adam could not speak highly of him, more highly. He said he's like what you just said, the best like underground kept secret, crazy magic. And Adam hires him every year for his party. And the reason is, he said, Adam said that Joe gave him the best, like the most magical moment of magic he could ever, like he gave him the best moment of magic he's ever felt, is what he described. And it was an any card at any number, which for most laymen isn't normally ranked as the best plot. But for Adam it is, because he's a data guy, a business guy, an analyst guy. Yeah. So the story he said was, there's all these methods of any card at any number. You've got the Aussie wins, all these different versions with stacks, and this is just what Adam's saying is like they always use a box, they always, blah, blah, blah. But Joe did a version where he sat the deck on the table, and from my memory, he never touched it after that. And he asked me to name a card and a number, and he never approached the deck. He let me approach it, and he's like, I know 3 different stacks, and this is not in a stack, but when I got to that number, it was my card. And Adam said he just jumped back from his chair like, this is ridiculous. And then Joe's like, yeah, that's like my thing at the moment that I've been working on. It's the thing that I'm really proud of. And Adam's like, this is insane. Yeah. And so
I'll share one last Joe story before we press on, because when I lectured at the GenieCon convention, it was I think it was myself, Levant, and Joe Barry, and we were doing a show. And it was in 3 separate rooms. What was happening was, as we performed in each room, we would then circulate and perform for these different groups. It was a very large convention. And so the audiences stay put, but the performers change. And I walk into Joe's room to a standing ovation that I had to follow. Gary Davis, who's in the chat, he was actually there. That's actually where I think where he and I set up a friendship. But yeah, it was phenomenal. Like just great. I got my ovation as well, thankfully. But I think out of pity more than anything, like it was a good act, but erroneous. Like he's so difficult to get a hold of. There's no socials of him. He barely even has a website. And the funny thing was, when I spoke to him, he was like, I only work for like 5 people. They book me regularly. They pay me a ton to be there. I work for Apple. I work for this. I work for that. And this makes sense now. This is the conduit that we just sort of like put together. So putting 2 and 2 together, like, yes, Joe Barry, if anyone has any contacts with him, let him know we'd love to share who you are. That would be amazing. Yeah. And just to see you again, bud. It's been a while. It'd be good to see you. So yeah, there we are. But cool story. So circling back to this New Year's resolution that we are currently facing, I put together a small list of things that I think would be very beneficial to those who are moving forward. Now, I put together a small list. Well, I say a small, it's 10. It's 10 things that I think are going to be very beneficial. So starting with number 1. Here we go, folks. Number 1, learn a new sleight or technique every month. And I think the reason for that is that ultimately I've always treated sleights and techniques as tools in a toolbox, and you might not always need those tools, but I think ultimately it's going to help with, for me, my creativity, and also help me to expand my repertoire. I've started putting together some really cool card effects, and what I'm trying to figure out more now is I'm trying to figure out how to gaff things more, and how to find different ways to like strip cards out and different things like that. And it's a very minor thing, but just for example, I want to be able to hold a deck and just with like and just like this, be able to strip out like a slug of cards for an effect. And yes, I can do it with a cull or just by doing something nonchalant or a couple of passes of just going through the cards, but I don't want it to be that. I want it to be something that's like, I didn't even see when he did that. And I just feel like that'll be an extra level of stuff. So I'm learning new techniques, new sleights, how to gaff cards and things like that. Do you agree with that, Josh?
Dude, I've just been reading Ozzy Wynn's repertoire too, and it has an exact thing of what you're talking about. And I wonder if that's what you've been learning about as well.
It's so funny because Dooley was sharing that on a chat the other day. Our good friend from New Zealand, Brendan Dooley. I read the first one on a flight back from the States, and basically the first one I was like, oh, the 20 ways to do Akon, and then he goes, oh no, this one is the 20 ways to do the card inside box, like the folded card inside box.
I mean, that is a chapter in there for sure, but like there's so much other stuff as well. One of them being what you're explaining, how you could strip a slug out from any shuffled deck, from your deck once it's been shuffled.
We will talk about that after the show.
100%. But yes, learning, that's why I got the book. I want to learn a new sleight a month.
Sure. And I agree. In fact, I will share a couple of things later on. The second thing, number 2, polish and refine one signature routine. So I have certain routines that I am putting together, and I have the luxury of performing them regularly, but I'm really trying to trim the fat as much as possible, and in order to give it the ultimate magic effect. And so for me, it requires a lot of experimentation and the many different versions of performing stuff. So I guess that if I was going to share this advice to anybody else, I would say choose one of your go-to effects and focus on making it perfect. Like how to better the timing, better the scripting, and better the audience management, or optimize. For me, it's like optimizing the audience management. There's a couple of things that I do that would work better if I just had somebody to my right. Just so I can show them something and be like, think of one of these cards, yeah? And then just throw the deck away. And I can just do things of that nature that are better. I have been experimenting with this recently, and I was like, okay, I got a situation where I've got a person to my left and right, and I can do this effect for everyone in front of them. And they didn't speak English, and I was like, crap. So that was something that I had to learn. So, and go, right, I had the intention of doing this act or this routine rather, but unfortunately it didn't come out. But if I didn't have the mindset of focusing on a go-to effect and trying to make it absolutely perfect, I wouldn't have found these problems or had these failures / learning situations, lessons, if you will.
Yeah, that's solid. I got nothing to add there. That's great.
All right. Number 3, read a classic magic book. I think revisiting foundational works of magic like Card College, for me, like it's Bobo's Modern Coin Magic. I like to revisit Maximum Entertainment every now and again. Now, I don't need to do this in such a way that like I read it from back to front, but I do tend to flick through things. So even last night, I wanted to have an early night, and I just couldn't sleep. So I ripped out by my bed. I got a whole pile of books, but I just reached over and I grabbed Strong Magic. Well, first I was reading Designing Miracles, and as I was reading the foreword written by Whit Hayden, I decided it was mentioning some stuff in Strong Magic, and I kind of felt like I didn't retain enough from Strong Magic, so I decided to reread it. And as I was going through, I actually came across something that you kind of mentioned earlier about your chat, about like the authenticity of your character and so forth. And this was a really funny line that I read in this book, and it says here, as a magician, you should seriously take the old gag that the secret to success is sincerity. And once you learn to fake that, you got it made. And I was like, that's funny. That's really funny. Yeah. But it's those little things that you sort of go like, yeah, it's just these little reminders of going back through books to do that. So, know where you came from to know where you're going. And Bobo's Modern Coin Magic is just a good reminder every time.
Mm-hmm. Books separate to magic. I have read a ton of sales books, mainly because I created a keynote called The Magic of Sales, which I was doing for a while. And once you read enough of them, you start to realize like they're all saying the same principles because like they obviously work. But sometimes you do need to just be re-familiarized with like those same plots again. So when I was flying back from New Zealand after Christmas, I was like, you know what? Instead of watching movies and just zoning out for this 4 hours, I'm going to buy a book and I'm going to read that goddamn thing and see what comes out of it. And so I picked up The Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. And I've listened to a ton of his podcasts, but I was skimming through the start of this book and like just from looking at the titles of the chapters, I was like, all right, this is going to be some good stuff. So I'll just share like one little quote that he has in here, and maybe it'll prompt you to want to get the book as well. It has so many great tips for like how to look after your clients, because essentially one of my goals this year is to really focus on like just treating my clients that book me as great as possible. What things can I do, to make sure that they also want to have me again, they can have me again, and just like, how can I just give them the best experience of booking me? Anyway, a little thing they have in here is this thing called the psychological moonshot. And the thing I circled was, and I'll explain what it is, but he goes, a psychological moonshot is relatively small. It's a small investment that drastically improves the perception of something. And so what he explains was he has this hairdresser that comes to his house to do his hair. And he's had him for like 2 years. And then one day he felt like the hairdresser was trying to rush his haircut because he just kind of finished the haircut and was like, okay, you're done. And he's like, hang on, that felt like you don't care about me today. It felt like you kind of rushed what you're doing. But he looked at his watch and he's like, oh no, he spent the same amount of time he always does. And then he was like looking at his hair and he's like, oh no, my haircut is perfect. So why do I feel like you rushed my haircut? And then he asked him, he's like, you did my hair great and you spent the same amount of time, but why do I feel like you were like trying to quickly get through my haircut. And then the hairdresser laughed and he's like, oh my God, that's so funny. He's like, I totally forgot to do, he calls it something else, the hairdresser, but he's like, I totally forgot to do my final check that makes clients feel like I'm spending that extra time with them. And he's like, normally what I do with you is I go, okay, I think you're done, but let me just quickly look. And he's like, and I pretend to cut little extra little bits here and there as I look through your hair. I'm not doing anything, but I'm just like doing a final check is what he calls it. And then he'll say, and now you're done. So he literally does nothing physically different, but he does this little thing called a moonshot, which is just a tiny investment that really has no difference in the experience, but it makes them feel like you've just spent this extra attention. And I thought that was freaking genius. And then, so when I relate that back to my own work, what I'm going to do from now on is I'm going to finish my gig. Normally, I always go overtime anyway, just naturally because I enjoy the job, but that's a good thing to do in business, give them extra value. But now imagine you've done your gig, you've spent that extra time, and then you go to the client, you thank them, and then you go, oh, actually, that person didn't get to see quite enough magic. I'm going to go show them one more thing, but then I'll thank you so much for having me. I'm just going to go do one more.
Great idea.
That's like a little moonshot in what he's talking about, this whole psychological thing. I think that's going to have a massive impact, and it really changes nothing else that you have to physically do.
That's a much better idea. What I tend to do is I go, hey, I'm sorry. I know I went over time. I was just having a great time. I hope you don't mind. No, thanks for sticking around. Do we need to pay you more? Absolutely. No, I had the best time. You kidding me? Thank you so much for having me. Hope to see you next year. But your method, I think, is way better.
I think it's worth trying. Yeah. I read it in the
book.
On
neon
like, this is
sign.
Awesome.
You basically put like a framing around like, oh, wait, I'm about to head off, but I promised Gavin that I would show him one more before I leave, but I just wanted to say goodbye in case I don't catch you later. Oh, cool. Who's that? Oh, some guy over there. You don't know him? He don't mean shit to me. But like, that's a really cool way of framing it, man.
Yeah. Let's try it and see what happens.
And then just leave.
Yeah.
Because you don't do anything. It's just a dual reality.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to do one. Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I'm just going to do one more lap of the room just to make sure I have shown everyone magic. Like, it could just be that, Yeah. Yeah. And so this book is a ton of little things like that, these little psychological things that just let the client know that you care and stuff like that. And so good. So good. Diary of a CEO. All right. So we're up to, what are we up to? Number 4. Number 3. Okay. Yep. Number 4.
Great. Number 4 is keep performing for new audiences regularly. Now, that is one thing I'm trying to maintain. I have the luxury of doing that through my residencies. But what I mean by that is that something that I do, but I think is something worth sharing. Now, the beauty of doing my residencies is that because of each location and the times that I perform them in, I have the privilege for performing for different groups such as seniors, children, families, annoying eshays, and how to deal with those kids, all manner of different types of people. I most recently was performing at Chadston, which is our very big, I think it's like the largest shopping mall or something in Southern Hemisphere. There's a lot of money in there. It's a very cool place. But there was this one family that was going through, and one particular man that they were bogan as all get out. And to the point where he was like, literally, it was upsetting people, staff members specifically. And so I see situations like this and I choose to involve myself to distract them, or when I say distract them, gain their attention and maintain them from bothering other people. Old mate comes and steps up beside me, Baz, and I'm doing stuff, and his reactions are great, but they are very vocal with foul language. And I'm going, whoa, my guy, there's children present. The kids went, that's okay, we know him. And I go, that may be, child, but we're in what's called a public place. And that sort of thing doesn't really fly here, my guy. Mind your language. And then he was the most tame, lovely, pleasant guy that was just thankful to see awesome magic and his family having a great time. And they were all lovely, and the kids were great. and their parents were like on the kids to make sure they were behaving themselves, and everything was great. They were actually really nice people, but they just were a bit loose. Well, Baz was loose. The rest of them were good eggs. It goes to show what bad apples can do. But I think that those sorts of things super important. Now, number 5, I've stopped doing this. So I've used to do this every performance, stage performance especially. My roving stuff, not so much, but I used to record and review every performance I used to do on stage. I think Scotty Link mentioned this earlier in the chat, and yes, you are 100% correct. It is the best way to improve your show, because I'm my biggest critic. Like, if somebody tries to give me, hey man, if you want some notes, let me know. I'm like, no. Your notes will be 3, and mine will be 3 books worth of notes on how to improve myself. Don't worry about what you have to say. Like, no one's harder than me. And that's one of the things that I've kind of stopped doing whenever I'm doing my stage performances. Now, by all means, record them. Not always because, I've got to record it because I need it for promo, but record it because you just want to review what you're doing. Some people only record their audio. They'll just put their phone on record and put it by the speakers and just record what they're saying. Cool idea. That's fine. And some people want to see everything and just put a camera at the back of the room. I think that's essential. Josh, I know that you've got some thoughts on this.
I mean, I do film every show a lot because I want to capture those one-off moments that I'll use to post on social. But it means that I am watching back every show that I do. And that's what has helped me create those moments that are fun to watch. Because for a very long time when I first started, I hated watching myself. And, that's a bit of a red flag if that does happen. So, yeah. And you just notice stuff like, why am I standing still for so long during this one thing, for example? I thought there was so much happening that I could do that and it wouldn't matter. But, if the audience is staring at you and I'm just standing sideways for so long, like, why aren't I doing that? Or like, I'll notice myself. The biggest thing is I'll notice myself fumbling with props, like unnecessarily. Like, whereas when you watch it back on video, I'm like, So easy example. I do a bottle production. And then what I had been doing was I do the bottle production. Then as I'm talking, I would go and sit it down on a table, come back to the front, and then say, now for the next thing, I'm going to borrow whatever, $50. And then I go out to the audience to find it. But then it occurred to me, like, why the hell don't I just keep holding that bottle while I then go into the next segue? Like, why am I walking away to come back to then go out to the audience? So now I stand there, I talk, do all the jokes. It's so much more seamless now. I hit my music cue, and as I'm walking off stage to find the person, I just sit it down. And like, that's such a little detail that now watching back, it's like a little more aesthetically pleasing to see that happen. So those little things help so much to watch it back and realize. But and you'll just do that every show. There'll be a million things you can tweak. It's great.
Exactly right. Exactly right, my dude. And it's those sorts of things where, like when I mentioned earlier, like I just want to have a technique where I could just strip out a bank of cards. It's things like that where like you're not just going, hey guys, how are we? And just like then all of a sudden you're disengaged with your audience. Like that's just not the customer experience I want to give. Yes, it's a method, but there's a reason why I am the way I am and why I have like not the gravitas and the performance where I can demand people's attention, because I'm giving them all my attention and not giving it all to the deck, to set things up and stuff. And don't get me wrong, like I'll stack a deck when I break the fourth wall. I'll do little things where I'll turn to my audience and go like, well, that's what I do for a living. What do you guys do? And as they're doing that, I'm just culling everything I need for the next trick. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. What do you do? I'm a plumber. Cool. You like go-karting? What? Yeah. And you go down green pipes and collect coins? Oh, Mario jokes. That's right. I do Mario jokes. Ready to do the trick. I'm all set. Like, that's literally an interaction I had on Saturday night. So those things are important, and I'm not doing it enough, and I'm being accountable for it. So thank you. Number 6, create original routines. The reason I say that is it's a nice way to challenge yourself, and it allows you to inject your own persona and personality into your routines. one of the things that I think that allowed me to get a leg up in the industry in Oz and be invited to do things like lectures, both in Australia and abroad, is the fact that I do original stuff and that I have routines that I've learned, techniques and whatever else for, and perform them. You can't really be a lecturer if you're going out there and performing everyone else's material. It's not really, you can't be a touring band as a cover band. But if you're an original band, you can go and do a tour. And that's the way I think about it, because I used to be in a band. And that's the reason I think about it like that way. It's exactly the reason why. So I implore you to not always like, I mean, by all means, do routines you've been doing. Like you can do, let's just say very primitively, like Gregory Wilson's coins across using the Goshman pinch. By all means, you can use that technique, but like do it your own way. Change one phase. All of a sudden it becomes yours and the way you do it. I recommend that. Now going into the next one, number 7, learn another discipline. Now we kind of spoke about this briefly earlier, but let's take a deep dive into it. Now, what I mean by learning another discipline, what I mean is something outside of magic. Study acting, comedy, storytelling, improvisation, something that's going to enhance your performance skill. Learn clowning. Learning things from Ovna was the most beneficial thing to me. Learning how to control breath is so important. I see people perform and they're holding their breath in because they're nervous and it just holds tension. But if they just, I'm like, dude, exhale. What? Exhale. Just, and all of a sudden their shoulders drop and they're not puffed in their chest and they're not holding in this tension. Breathe. For God's sake, breathe. Like you're making me tense. Because it's going to be like, again, Scotty wants to learn a didgeridoo. By all means, dude. When I was in a band, I literally, the first show I ever did, I performed with a bunch of guys with didgeridoos on stage. It was great. We played Green Day When I Come Around, and they played the bass line in the background. It was sick. I then met that cat like 20 years later, long story short. But learning other disciplines are important. One of the things I've read most recently that was very beneficial is a book by Keith Johnson. It's a very short book, but it's called Improv. And it's about how to basically interact and improvise in situations. He does it in the form of acting. I think it can be done in the form of just pitter-patter with your audience. The very first thing he mentions in that book is status. And whenever you do any scene, you need to establish status. And it doesn't mean that you have to be the alpha or you have to be the most important thing in the room. For me, very primitively, I will come to a couple, for example, and I will address the woman as Her Majesty. What is your name, Your Majesty? And all of a sudden she's, oh, I'm Sarah. And I'm like, wonderful. And then I go, say hi, Sarah. And the guy's like, hi, Sarah. And I go, what is your name, handsome sir? And he's like, I'm Gavin. And I'm like, say hi, Gavin. She's like, hi, Gavin. And I go, I think she likes you, Gavin. And then he laughs like, yeah. And if they're on a first date, like that just sets it up, man. Like that just sets it up. And because I've been jazzing a lot, I've started putting together routines in which it's like they do routines and they're both in sync. Just look at a card. Don't say what it is. Did you see one? Cool deal. Take one from the deck. Classic force. Boom. What card are you thinking, man? I'm thinking the 8 of hearts. What did you get? And I'm like, oh my God, you're so in sync. That's crazy. And all of a sudden, like, oh my God, we are. And then he's like, thanks for being my wingman, Mr. Magic. And you kind of go from there. Now, if I hadn't done things and read other books to influence the way I perform it, it wouldn't have led me down these paths, into these routines, into these scenarios where I walk into a situation, find a way to control it, and make it the best thing possible. So that's why I say read those things. Read the Diary of a CEO. Read different things that are going to learn different things that are going to help you. Josh?
Yeah. Read.
Good.
Yeah.
Number 8, support the magic community. Attend a magic convention, hang out at a magic club, collaborate with local magicians, fellow magicians, whoever it might be, build connections. That's so important. You know, Mr. James, who was just here earlier, like he now works for Omegan, the same company that I built with Nathan Hedger. that was just 2 venues in Australia and now all over Australia. This is a result of us being able to contact him, reach through different communities, make different contacts all across the planet, go to Magic Live, connect with other magicians in the States, and start employing them. Like, that's what community is about. Having this community in which we can offer advice that you like take on board and build careers. Look at like Scotty P's doing shows, you know what I mean? Our good friend, the Christian Magician, out there doing shows. Like, these are all really cool things. And I think that we're stronger together. And as long as we do it with the intent of bettering each other and we generally care about each other, I think that we're all going to be great. I mean, Magic community in some places, and we spoke about this briefly, and we're going to go over time in this episode, but Josh, we've been around other communities where there's been a huge level of toxicity in different communities. I've seen it across different countries. It just doesn't work out well. Anyone who is anti-magic or anti someone doing well, and they try to project that person who does that never really quite does as well as the person that just is supportive and treats it with love, as opposed to like the slander and the bad talk and the back talk and things like that. I can't understand why communities are like that.
Yeah, and I don't think magic is special for that. I think that happens in every industry, right? But yeah, I guess, you try and cut that out as quick as you can. But sometimes people it's just egos get in the way, right? Because you're told every time you perform, you're the best magician I've ever seen. You're the best. But then you're like, hang on, how come that person's more successful than me? I can do ambitious card as well. And then this sort of tension builds up. And rather than just helping everyone, because there's more for everyone than you could handle. And so, yeah, it does definitely. Yeah, Tim says jealousy. Exactly right. Like, yeah, I've talked about this on a podcast before. I thought in the beginning when I was first getting into magic and I would go to the magic clubs and stuff, and we're all sort of learning the same, like we're all at the same level. We're all not really doing stuff. I thought if I became a professional, like a full-time magician, like everyone would celebrate that and they'd be like, yeah, he did it, da-da-da. But actually people start talking to you less because they're like, fuck, that guy's fucking making money from magic. What the hell? Why aren't I doing that? And then they start to throw out little nitpicks at stuff you put out. And none of that, by the way, none of that happens to me now, but I'm not hanging out at the magic clubs and stuff. I'm hanging out with my peers like Nick K over here. But it does happen. And so the best thing is to just sort of cut out those people because they're just going to keep doing it.
Yeah. Or, like I always try to lead with like those who hate need love the most, man. And, I remember hanging out with Teller and everyone was in the car and we're driving along and I'm leaning in. I'm like, oh, by the way, I get a text or whatever else. And I'm like, hey, man, can you do Friday at this venue? And he's like, yeah, no worries. Cool, man. Lock it in from like 7 till 10. And then Teller turns to me and says like, you give these guys work? I'm like, of course. They're my boys. And he was like, I've never seen anywhere in the world that's like this. In fact, I had dinner with, we had like a little breakup dinner with the guys in Victoria recently. And I won't mention who said it, but it was one of the guys who I'm very close with. And he turns to me and he says, out of all the people that I work for in December, I made the most money off the work you gave me. And I paid him a lot. Like I threw him a lot of work. I'm talking thousands of dollars this month. And he goes, out of everyone I've invoiced, your invoice is the biggest. And that's because I care about my community and I care about my people. And again, I don't do it for any other reason that like it's the right thing to do. And because this guy who works for me like has this beautiful life where he can support himself and his family and everything else. That's what it should be about. And I wish it was like that everywhere because I've been in situations in different countries where just rivaling magic clubs have been like trying to boycott. Don't go to this thing because they're putting on a show. Like, what are you talking about? There was one person in Melbourne who was like that. They were saying things like, if you stop hanging out with this magician, I'll give you gigs. They said that to me. And I went,
Wow.
no. And you know what happened to that person? They don't exist anymore. Their agency, their company, their shop, all gone. Doesn't exist. Because that's what happens when you try to create a divide in the Magic scene. It's just not the way it should be done.
Yeah, crazy.
You know? So for the last two to go, as we wrap this up, friends, develop a practice regime. I think that's important, just to commit to a structured practice. And for me, when I was first getting into Magic, I used to work my 9 to 5. I would come home and I would unwind. I would unwind with Magic. I would unwind by just with my cards. I still take my cards on flights because I find it very relaxing, and I'm not the best flyer. But I don't know. Like, to me, it's not even an issue anymore with flying. Like, I do it so often now, it doesn't matter. But like at first, cards are just a beautiful relationship of relaxation. And the beauty of that, and I mentioned this 1,000 times before, and I apologize for being repetitive, but just when you have a relationship with Magic that is relaxing, when you perform it, you don't stress. It's what you do to relax. So go out and relax and make people happy. That's a really nice thing to do. But not only Magic, friends. Don't practice just Magic. Practice other things. Practice technique, practice scripting, practice your presentation, practice how you speak. Super important. Stay sharp and stay consistent. That's why I try to read as much as I do. When I first started doing vlogs 10,000 years ago, it was because I wanted to be better speaking and addressing things to a camera and to people. I find myself when I speak and I'm about to fumble my words, I kind of syncopate, where I'll say a word at a time. Especially when I'm doing big words, you know, like look out for the hippopotamus. Like I will syncopate words in order to make it easier to come across with. But that's only through all the previous things that we've mentioned on this list that have allowed me to polish and perfect and to continually do that and stay consistent. Josh?
Geez, that was such a tangent. I think I've lost track of the original thought of that. Give me
Develop a practice regime, practicing scripting, technique, everything.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's so important. Otherwise, you will forget things if you think you just know how to do the routine.
Like what people said.
Like what people said, yeah, and like it's just so important. Like I had not done like the homing card for a while, and then I went to do it on stage without thinking of practicing it first, and I like forgot to load cards in pockets and stuff, like as part of the routine, and then I'm like, oh god damn it! Then I had to use other sleights to get myself out of that situation when I could have just rehearsed and kept it smooth. And yeah, I mean, another thing I would add is like keep pushing yourself in Magic to be doing stuff where you're a little bit on edge when you're performing, because it like keeps you in the moment. You definitely do want to be relaxed for the majority of your Magic, like Nick's saying, because you want to not be stressing and sweating and stuff. But like for me, at least, I like to have those moments in there that make me be in the moment, because otherwise, if I don't figure out how to get to the end of this routine, it's not going to work. And so it keeps me always like engaged and fresh in the moment and working it out. Because I've definitely, friends of mine have told me stories of how they knew it was time to quit doing gigs because they would just be so autopilot that they know they're not giving what they need to the audience. Like they're thinking about what they're going to do once the gig's finished while they're in the middle of a routine.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that I thought this would lead into, it would be that the consistency of practicing a routine is something that's kind of ideal for those learning Mem Deck. A lot of people out there are saying, "Oh, I'm going to learn Mem Deck this year. I'm going to learn a mnemonic, a stack. I'm going to learn a stack. I'm going to learn a stack." I'm not nearly consistent enough to learn stacks. And never am I really in a position to actually do stuff with stacks. If I'd be doing it, I'd be learning it so that I could do more like stage or parlor stuff. But I do stuff that's like shuffle decks and random and resets immediately and so forth. So, but if I am going to do that stuff, I got to be consistent and I got to like practice it every day, or every few days. And when it truly sinks in, because I find myself doing it for like a month, doing it pretty well, and then not doing it for a month, and then I forget how to walk. Like I just don't remember anything if I don't do it enough. You know what I mean? Like it's just, yeah. So for those out there who are looking to include a stack in their new body of work, you've got to develop a practice routine or a regime where you can actually just pound that into you. I mean, if you're looking for something specific to that, put a deck in stack, grab a 10, and then write in the back of it 1, 2, 3, and then just do it 10 cards at a time. And then go,
and then absolutely. And when you go to do gigs, just have 2 decks and just pull out the mem deck when you decide I'm going to do a mem deck sequence when it's not such a rowdy group. That's how I would do it. Like I would have 2 decks. One is the one I majority of the time would use, get it shuffled, ambitious card, whatever, giving away cards, all that stuff. And then I would have the other deck when it's like I'm seeing a group for the second time around, I'm going to just blow their mind with hands off stuff. That's what I used to do. And now it's reversed. Now I have 2 decks in stack and I do stack stuff because I've learned all these routines I can still do that all revolve around the deck staying in order. And then eventually, once it gets out of stack, that becomes now the deck that's out of stack, and that's fine. And then I use the other one still when I'm roving around. Yeah. But whatever, like I'm totally happy to do Magic with just a shuffle deck. But if you are wanting to get into that stuff, just have 2 on you and just pull out the mem deck when you're wanting to do a mem deck thing. And it could just be as simple as spreading, they take one out, and then you cut the deck and you know what card they've picked. And you say, all right, keep the deck in your hand, the card in your hand, name a card that's not yours. And then, okay, so by association, you said a card that's going to be different. So your card must be red. If you said a black card, divine their card. That's an easy way to start using a mem deck, without any knuckle busting stuff yet. It's all good fun.
Absolutely. Good fun. And look, the last thing I want to say before we wrap up this overtime episode that I hope you guys are getting some value of is to give back through Magic. And when I thought about what that actually means or what might mean to you guys, it's just quite literally just use your Magic to bring people joy, to make them smile, erroneous to who they are, whether they're just a person walking down the street, a family member, it doesn't particularly matter. But by all means, like I've been spending a lot of time in hospitals lately, and so I've showed a bit of love to nurses and stuff I've made mention in previous episodes. But if there's an opportunity to perform for a hospital, a charity, or even opportunities to teach Magic to aspiring magicians, give back. It fills your cup. It does, what you have is a gift, gifted to people who deserve it. And if you have the ability to make someone's day better, you should do so.
Yeah. And you never know what will come from that too. Like, not that you should do it for any personal gain, but the more people that know you do Magic, like just, the more fun your life becomes. Like people like look forward to seeing you, like the Magic guys coming through the grocery store, like that store that I paid for something with my Ace of Spades card. Like now they remember me for that. And it's like now we chat more and stuff because we like broke the ice with Magic. Scott Link says, you work to make money, you do Magic to make people happy. Absolutely, yeah. The reason I charge for my Magic is so that I can just continue to do Magic. Is that the right saying? The reason I
think what I say is what I make is purely a side effect of me doing. The money I make is purely a side effect of being extremely good at what I love doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. The only reason I charge to do Magic is so that I can continue to just only do Magic. It's something like that. Anyway, it's like it's a byproduct. It's so that it's necessary to live our lives, but it's not why we do it.
Give it away, give it away, give it away,
give it away
now. Give it away,
yeah.
give it away, give it away now.
I love it. So let's have a great 2025. Some of you shared your goals here in the Speak Pipe, so I look forward to following up and seeing how those went at the end of the year. You've heard us ramble on about our goals, hold us accountable as well. And look, it's going to be a great year. Nick, anything else to add for our friends?
Well, as a new year begins and reflecting on the year past, thank you for all your support you guys have been giving us over the past year. We will do everything we can to endeavor to bring you guys value and make you guys smile. I wish you all a very happy 2025, and look forward to all the fun that's going to be happening this year, friends. Thank you for your support.
Thanks for listening. It's time for us to disappear now. But we'll see you again on the next episode of The Magic Guys.